Hey family, this is Pastor Jennifer, and I want to thank you for taking another moment to meet us in the Breakroom. We are so excited, and we are here today with a member of our church, Sister Tonja Murphy, who is a native Jacksonian, born and raised right here in Jackson, Mississippi, a graduate of the Jackson State University. She published her first book in the spring of 2016. I remember that. I remember us sitting down and discussing the first book, Icing On The Cupcake. And I remember telling you when you did this one, you know, congratulations on the first of many.
Yes, you did.
And so we are here today in a moment of prophetic fulfillment.
Yes.
And so we want to talk a little bit about this today. Tonja is an author. She is an award-winning advocate for youth and for children, and she is a motivational speaker. And so we're here to celebrate the release of your latest book, Maria's Brave Walk Home. And I'm telling you, I'm excited about this book. It's a book for children and adults alike. And we're going to get into that. But kind of first off, I wanted to start off by talking about your collection of books.
Okay.
The first book was Icing on the Cupcake, and this is a collection of short stories. And so just tell me a little bit about this book, Icing on the Cupcake.
Well, what was interesting about that book, in 2010, I made a post on Facebook and said, I think I want to write a book. And it took me to 2016 to actually publish it. I had to get over the fact of it being my book. It was God's book. So every obstacle, every hurdle, all of that to publishing that book, they just stood out until I said, okay, you know what? This is not my book. This is his book. And so everything just started happening, you know, publishing, editing, cover, and all that kind of stuff just started happening. And that book was very personal. It's some personal stories in there, some of our conversations in there. And people were like, wow, you actually wrote that. And I was like, yeah. And I was good with writing it, and I'm okay with writing it. God and I had a conversation. And that's one of the things that I tell people who want to write a book. Right. Especially if it's something personal and if your story, because everybody's story involves other people. Absolutely. You got to make sure that you've had that conversation this way for permission to release it. And so,
Absolutely. So you did Icing on the Cupcake, got great response from it.
I did.
I know many people in our church purchased it and were very excited about what they read and just seeing what God was doing. The next book was The Lost Coin. And so tell us a little bit about The Lost Coin.
Okay, so with The Lost Coin, it's about a woman, Sarah Turner. She has it all. She has the husband, she has the job, she has the family, but she's missing something. And if she does not figure out what she's missing, she risks losing it all. Now, The Lost Coin, of course, is a parable. I did not rewrite the Bible, but it's some similarities in there. And it talks about how when something is missing, you really risk losing everything. And so a lot of women identified with the story, was getting messages saying, you know what, I am this lady. Oh my goodness, I see this, and you know, and I need to do better, you know, as a wife, as a woman, as a mother. And so,
I think that's one thing about reading that is so cathartic and therapeutic is that so many times you can find yourself in the midst of what you're reading in a non-confrontational way. And then it becomes confrontational to deal with what you see.
Deal with it. Because you can't unread it.
Right. You cannot unread what you have read. But okay. And then the next one, I remember this one, Growing Through Prayer.
Going Through Prayer.
If I remember correctly, we were getting ready here at the church to go on a consecration. And you just felt the Lord moving upon your heart to put something out. So tell us a little bit about this.
Okay. So Growing Through Prayer is surrender, settle in, flow in faith. And so you have to do those three things. And it's actually 17 prayers and it's over 17 weeks, but there's power in repetition. So you pray the same prayer every day. And if God lays something or someone on your heart to pray for that particular prayer, you do it. So it's a journal. And it has it has pages that you can write on in there. And so you're able to see yourself grow. You're able to see yourself change because you do have a spot to write whether you see mental changes, physical changes, and spiritual changes. And so that's how that came up. And I remember sitting, I was having coffee, and I was like, let me text Pastor. And I was like, Pastor, what do you think about this? And I'm just going back and forth. And she was like, yeah. That kind of aligns with
absolutely
what we're doing. So and it's wonderful to be connected, and when it just confirms your connection through something that is produced here.
And it's something that you can really revisit quite often.
You can.
There's 52 weeks in a year. This is a 17-week prayer journal, but it's one of those things. Something about the Lord, you can read the same scripture 10 times and hear something different and see something different every single time.
Yes.
And so that's how it is with this prayer journal. No matter how many times you read it, surrender means something different at different phases in your life. Settling in means something different. Flowing in faith means something different. Everything meant something different this year in the midst of a global pandemic. Scriptures we've heard, sermons we've heard. Everything took on new meaning this year in the midst of the pandemic. So I love the prayer journal. The next one, the Congressman's Daughter.
Okay.
Let's talk about this one.
Okay, so the Congressman's Daughter is actually the sequel to the Lost Coin. And so the congressman, he loses his daughter, and that's not giving away what happens in the Lost Coin. But the congressman deals with grief. And sometimes how men deal with grief is different from how women deal with grief. And so talking about it from a man's point of view, a black man's point of view, and of course, y'all, Captain Obvious, I'm not a black man, so it was all like God saying, okay, this is what you write. And also his experience with a therapist in the book, because black men don't do therapy the way they should. And so even talking to a therapist, letting a therapist read this to make sure that I was being accurate in telling about what therapy looks like and how it should be. So and the congressman, these are good church going people. They have real life issues, because at one point the congressman, he was having a drink in the middle of the day, and he was with one of the deacons, and they was like, sir, what's going on? So just really painting a real picture of what goes on. And so And I will say with the novels, I said I would never write another novel. And God was like, yeah, you're going to write another one.
And that's what I love is that the different genres of publishing. And you're just attacking things from so many different angles in a therapeutic way. And so I've really been appreciative to see that and to witness that in your writing. Then we've got Lunch Buddy. And of course, I know Lunch Buddy.
Yes.
But tell us how this book came about.
Lunch Buddy, we were actually, just my little sweetie. So Lunch Buddy, we were sitting on the couch in his living room. And I said, you know what? What about I write a book for you for your birthday? And that was his birthday present for his 9th birthday. And so it was just stories of experiences we've had going to church in the neighborhood, and how we started eating lunch together and different things. And so the picture on the front is actually a picture that we took in the cafeteria, and the graphic artist was able to make it into a chalkboard design for the cover. So that's us, and we're still lunching. We are still having
very
lunch.
Good. Very good. And I know he's very proud of this book
he
too.
Is.
To be featured on the cover. And then this is something that I love that you've been doing. This is Sunshine and Butterflies, a love story. So this is a couple who was getting married. And if I understand correctly, they gave these out as gifts to their wedding party.
They did.
To those attending the wedding. Tell us how this came about.
I met Antonio through something with the Ladybug Club. He actually took pictures, and then he came and did pictures at a book signing, and I met his fiance at the time. And I said, well, I want to write something for you all as a wedding gift. And I said, well, I got this idea. I want to do it for you all. And so over a couple of months, we did video interviews.
Okay.
I went back and wrote their love story from the video interviews.
Wow.
And so, and Sunshine and Butterflies is something that she would say all the time. And so that's how that became the title.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So, yeah.
Beautiful. And something unique to them.
Very unique to them.
And then you've got Blessed 13, Lessons from a Ladybug.
Mm-hmm.
So for those who may not know about the Ladybug Club and what that is, tell us a little bit about Ladybug Club and then how this book came into being.
Okay, well, the Ladybug Club is a organization for mothers and daughters, and we focus on education, service, family first, and being empowered. And so we've been around 15 years, and this book was written at the 13th year. And it wasn't going to be Lucky 13. It was going to be Blessed 13 because it had been 13 years. And I was in a leadership program at the time. And so one of the facilitators, she actually was like, what are you doing that you can teach someone else? And how can you teach it? What would be the things that you would want to make sure a person knew about that particular subject? And I was in a luncheon and I just wrote 13 things, and I went back and wrote the stories to go with those 13 things. And some of the mothers and daughters, they have personal stories in the back of the book about their experience. So that's how that one came about.
Very good, very good. And then we've got In God's Hands, and this is a story about your son, and you having to trust God.
I did.
And tell us a little bit about this.
And this is actually a collection of stories that I've written for the newspaper, other short stories, and that sort of thing. And so I remember when he went out to the military, it was just, you could have just hooked me to a bag and threw me, in the luggage and, just went. And so he asked me when he was home for Christmas, he was like, Mama, do you have everything you've written in one place? I was like, no, but I probably could put that together. How about I just do a collection just for you? And he was turning 20. It's only 20 copies of that book.
Wow.
It's only 20 copies. Yeah.
Wow. And then you've got Autumn Meets Spring, which is another love story of a couple who just happens to be your brother.
He is my little brother.
Yes, and sister-in-law. And then that brings us to the latest, which is Maria's Brave Walk Home.
Yes.
And so this is a story, I say for children and adults alike, because I know it was mainly written to young ladies and to women. But I feel like it's a story for everybody, really. And so let's talk about how Maria's Brave Walk Home came to be.
Okay, so what was interesting, a couple of years ago, I started going to therapy. And I was able to trace some of my adult life back to experiences that I had as a child. And so it just brought some things really full circle for me. And so I was like, okay, so this is why I do this, or this is why I do that.
Right.
And usually when I'm out to dinner, I'll have a notepad and pen in my purse. And God's like, oh, just write this down. And I was actually in a restaurant and I wrote this book in like 15 minutes.
Wow.
It just came. And so for me, of course, I couldn't tell exactly the experience because sometimes you have to protect the innocent in your story. Right. Sometimes you have to protect the guilty because of age and different things. Sure. And so this book came out of that. And I sat on it for about 2 years. I was like, I don't know if I'm ready to share, even though it wasn't the exact experience. I didn't know if I was ready to share it. Yeah. And so I had to get some direction this way. And he was like, okay, you're ready. You know where you are. You know what this is. You're in a good place. You're ready.
And so this is a story about facing
your fears. Facing your fears and knowing you don't have to face your fears by yourself.
Right.
Knowing you don't have to.
And so I love this story about the little girl and her friends and her experience with the dog. And I don't want to give it all away.
Yeah. And Maria's actually my middle name.
Right. And then Mimi at the end of the story too. And I really could, as I was reading this, I could see the whole thing playing out in my mind. It's something that anybody can identify with, those walks home from school. Oh, yeah. Your friends going different ways and sometimes finding that reception and that love and that healing and so many things in unexpected places or unexpected times. And so I really like this book. And so one of the other things I wanted to point out is that you actually painted the cover for this book.
I did.
Yeah. So tell us, one of the things I wanted to ask you specifically is, when you were coming up, did you see yourself being a writer, an author, a publisher? Was this something that was, when I grow up, I want to do this?
No.
Okay. So what really was the thing that pushed you into writing, and what has made you continue?
I would start with this thought for the day, and I would post it on Facebook, or I would send it to a few people. And Jordan, my youngest son, he said, "Mama, I just feel like you have something else to say." So I really owe a lot to Jordan for this journey. I really do, because he was like, "Mom, I just feel like you have something to say." So I would just start writing the stories, and it would turn into a longer Facebook post, and then it turned into a longer story, and I was like, okay, I got a lot of stories. And I remember sitting down with the editor the first time, and with all the stories I had, and she was like, this is 3 books, right? And she was like, you're going to have to pick what you want to do first. And so, but if somebody would have asked me, coming out of high school or going into college, what do you want to be? Oh, military or police officer. Easy. Easy. Just one of those things. Never saw myself as a writer. I'm a conversation person.
Absolutely.
I'm definitely that. But never saw myself as a writer. But I know sometimes when I sit down and it's something that connects from my head to my heart and just rolls down my arm to my hands, it just, and I just let it flow like that. And so, but I never, after the first book, I was like, I'll never do this again.
Right.
And I was like,
and then we see you've done it multiple times since then. Yeah. So all of this is a collection of things that you have written since 2016.
2016.
Written and published since 2016. So with Maria's Brave Walk Home, you said that the download and the push, the unction kind of came while you were in a restaurant eating dinner one night. And it's one of those things that just came.
It just happens.
What are you hoping to accomplish with Maria's Brave Walk Home?
I want girls, I want women, I want children to know that they don't have to face their fears by themselves. I want children to enjoy childhood with their friends and be able to enjoy their neighborhood and see those things in their neighborhood. And I want adults to be able to remember and reflect on those things. Because I had one woman to tell me on one page, she said, I remember my dad doing that. I remember coming home and my dad had fixed things.
Yeah. Well, I love like the peanut butter and jelly sandwich in the bag. I loved the way the grandmother grasped, Maria's face.
Yes.
When she saw that she was upset.
And she didn't have to say a word. She just kind of looked at her. So, but I want kids, and I want people to get that out of that. I really want them to get that out of that. And not just the people that you can lean on. Right. You can lean on God. You don't have to face things by yourself. Right. And it could be something that you're fearful of that happened when you were a child. Or it could be something that you're fearful of as an adult. You don't have to face that by yourself.
One of the things I thought about too when you just said that was Fred Rogers. We grew up on Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. But one of the things he said his mother shared with him was, when life gets overwhelming and you find yourself in a place that you're scared, look for the helpers. That there are always helpers around you. And Maria found a helper in her Mimi. She did. But, there's always people. And I think that this book is so instrumental, especially during this time, because just like we as adults have had to face fears, both known and unknown, I think that this book is a great tool to help children open up talking about their fears. We know Maria's fear was this dog, and I'm terribly afraid of dogs. But she faced this dog, face to face, eye to eye, even trembling inside. But she did it, and she came away with a newfound courage, a newfound boldness, a newfound
and a deeper relationship with her Mimi.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
She can go to Mimi with anything.
Yeah, and so I think it opens the door for a lot of different conversations to be had in a non-threatening way. Because when you really look at Maria's fears and justified fears.
Yeah.
But see how easily she overcame that fear. Even with tears streaming down her face.
Did.
Even, it's okay to cry. It's okay to be unsure. It's okay, but I love the way that the story ends, and I don't want to give it all away. But I think it's a phenomenal book, and I really think it's just one of those things that God had set aside for such a time as this, and so I've already invited you to come to Little Ambassadors to read the book, let them meet the author, and then we're going to make sure we provide each child with their own copy of Maria's Brave Walk Home. But I would love to encourage daycares, child care centers, schools, even for women's groups that come together, even prayer groups. I think that this is just such a tool for so many conversations to be had. And what did you come away from this experience? What did you come away with?
I came away with such a freedom, such a release from this. And I remember when I went to pick up the proof, I had to turn around and walk out of the printer. And she was like, oh, she said, I read it. I know. And I was like, I'm not going to cry in here. I promise I'm not going to cry. So I turned around. But for me, it was such a release because this is 35 years in the making.
Yeah.
And then knowing how it all just led me to where I am now, decisions, and making different decisions and going further. It was something just in these few little pages for me. And so and like I told you, I said, this book is, it's almost as special as the first one, if not even more, because of what it means and represents for me. So, yeah.
Well, I think that it's a phenomenal work. One of the things that I talk about sometimes as a pastor and as a leader, a preacher, sometimes people don't realize how much of you is attached to every, that it's not always easy to preach what you preach or write what you write, because it requires such a vulnerability sometimes.
It does.
And so that was going to be one of my questions is, out of all the books that you have written, what is your favorite? And I'm sure there's a particular thing attached to each one.
Oh, it is.
But what is your favorite book overall and why?
The first one and this one. So Icing on the Cupcake because it was the first one, and this one because of what it represents for me. Like really what it represents for me. And being at a place where you can share this no matter how deep it is, you can share it and you're okay with it. Because I know some people that have a similar Maria story. And they are not ready to share it. Because it's still some healing that needs to go on. It's some conversations that need to be had. It's some apologies that need to happen. It's some, you got to be okay with not having an apology that needs to happen. So for me, it would have to be Icing on the Cupcake and in this one. So,
I love to when Mimi told Maria, you can always share anything with me. But Maria's reason for not initially was thinking, oh, you're too busy. You've got too much going on. And, it makes us all the more conscious of what signal are we sending to people we encounter every day? What signal are we sending our children? Because you never want your children or grandchildren or godchildren to feel like you're too busy for them. You always want to be a safe place. that they know they can come to.
Yeah, and a good example of that is just as simple as when you pick up your children from daycare. Get off the phone.
Yes.
Because that's an important part of their day.
It is.
And they're chomping at the bit to tell you, what
and it's
they need.
also informing them of their value and their worth.
It is.
Because if you're focused on them and centered on them and really assessing how does he look today? How does she look today? He looks like something happened today. Or, it really informs you of their daily experiences. Whereas, if you're on the phone, you're not really taking in a lot of things.
A lot.
And that tells them something.
It does. And it tells the people that are caring for your children something too.
Absolutely. I know at Little Ambassadors, we've literally asked people to please not be on the phone when they pick their children up. Please greet them face to face. Please have conversation. Sometimes the teachers need to have a conversation, and so it's very important. But I tell you, out of all your works, Maria's Brave Walk Home is definitely one of my favorites.
Oh, well, thank you, Pastor.
And so I'm super excited about what I feel like God is going to do with it. I mean, every one of the books that you have written are filled with potential. They're intriguing. They're thought provoking. But this one has something special on it. For children and adults alike. And so if you're a parent watching, I want to encourage you. I ain't getting no commission, no kickback, none of that. But I want to encourage you to invest in Tonja Murphy, but invest in this book for your children, because this is a great tool for some great conversations to be had, for some healing to take place and some freedom to be gained in the lives of adults and children alike. And so, Miss Murphy, if people have been watching today and they are interested in one or two or all of your books, how can they contact you?
They can actually contact me through my website, TonjaMurphy.com.
TonjaMurphy.com, Tonja Murphy, MURPHY.com, TonjaMurphy.com.
Yep.
All right. And one day I'm going to have you back and I'm going to have you to tell your story, because the thing that makes all of this so intriguing is not just that you're a single female doing some amazing things, but kind of just some of the things you walk through in life. To be where you are now, I believe that would be a story that would empower a lot of single moms who may feel overwhelmed, who may feel like they don't see the light at the end of the tunnel right now, who may be in a place where life is getting the best of them. I think to hear just how faithful God has been to you,
'Cause he has.
and how I see some different life experiences pop up in each book. But I think it's amazing the way that God is using you, using your life story and using your desire and your heart to empower people to do some amazing things. So kudos to you. I'm proud of you. Glad to be your pastor. Glad to have you in our church, and so excited to celebrate what God is doing in your life.
Well, thank you.
All right. Well, listen, we want to thank everybody for taking the time to meet us in the break room. Listen, if you're being blessed, share this with a friend. Let somebody know that there's some great things being shared. And we want you to take time to meet us again next week, same time, same station. Until then, may God's absolute best be yours. Y'all make today a great day.